right. Welcome to Transform the Money, Transform the World. Talking how technology is going to change the way that we do commerce. And once again, our guest, Brian DeMint. This is not investment advice. We're just here to educate you all on our viewers on how technology is changing the way we do commerce. And Brian and I met here a few months ago and talked a lot and text a lot, and he's author of two books. And I want to talk about how to acquire those books at the end of the show. I'd recommend them both. But I'm going to finally get to meet Brian in July 12th. United Capital Management Financial Advisors is hosting Brian in our home office for a meeting where our clients and the public are invited to have a book signing and they can purchase books and hear you speak for a couple hours. And your two 10-year-olds are going to get a ride of horses in the Midwest. So I was telling Brian before the show started, this outfit, I look like a auctioneer, cattle or horse auctioneer, or a AQHA judge. And that stands for American Quarter Horse Association judge. But it's where I want to pick this up. I want to talk about Bitcoin is potentially saving capitalism. I said on one of the earlier episodes, our system has gotten into the habit of capitalizing the gains and socializing the losses, and the whole bailout, too big to fail. And I believe that Bitcoin is pure capitalism, create pure capitalism, and with that type of Web3 technology, be it a math-based, not a words-based society, and kind of moving into a world where when you transfer information and contracts via ledger technology, you essentially can't lie. Have 100% trusted information without the need for trusted third party or untrusted third party. But so Bitcoin is capitalism.
Yeah. No, it's a great question, and I think that's worth people kind of just chewing on that for a bit. Socialism, centrally planned government, whatever you want to call it, can only exist through the power of a central bank to fund it. If you think about how a social system works, or a socialist type system works, or a hybrid, if you hear public-private partnership, you're starting to get into the terminology that the socialists like to use, because we're talking about allowing or enabling government to exceed their revenue with their expenses. How can you and I do that? You and I can exceed our revenue by our expenses by borrowing and putting it on a credit card. We have to pay that back. Government does, but they don't have to pay it back in the same way that you or I do. Perhaps that's an entire other segment that we could do about how government does end up paying their debt back, but they rob in the process of doing that. In a socialist system, politicians can promise more than the last politician to earn more votes, and therefore extend social welfare programs, social programs. They can tell your business to shut down during a pandemic because don't worry, we're going to pay you a stimulus check, so all is going to be okay. You can't tell people to go inside and lock themselves up unless you can bribe them with some sort of stimulus, right? People would not have gone for that. Now, in a pure capitalist, Bitcoin is pure capitalism because nobody has control over the network. What is capitalism? Asking the fundamental question. Capitalism is a system by which free competition emerges. Like, competition is the highest value of capitalism. So you're not favoring one company over another through legislation. You're not favoring one person over another by giving them stimulus and the other person not, or you're giving them access to grants where you're not giving access to the other person. Bitcoin, you can only earn sound money if you've provided a good or a service of some sort of value that somebody wants to exchange for money. That's a revolutionary idea, because that seems like that's the only way money should operate. But when you have a central bank, meaning somebody can print money at will, that completely ruins capitalism. It completely ruins the incentives in a capitalist society. Imagine playing a game of Monopoly when the banker says player A I'm going to give you $400 every time you pass go. Player B, player C, player D, you guys only get $200 every time you pass go. And guess what? When you land on free parking, player A, I'm going to give you $5,000. Every other player doesn't get anything for it. You're changing the rules of the game. That is not a free and fair competition. That would be a socialist game of Monopoly versus a rules based game of Monopoly where everybody plays by the same rules. That's what Bitcoin represents, is pure, fair, balanced rules for everybody. If you want equality, which is the most progressive principle out there, we all want equality of the money system. You get what you work for, you get what you compete for. That is pure capitalism, and that's exactly what Bitcoin represents.
The point is, capitalism is pure and it's been demonized in this country, part of getting everybody fighting and competition capitalism. But what we've now, I could argue, I guess we could argue crony capitalism back to 1913, which we'll have an episode discussing that year forward. But for sure back to about 1980, and collectively there's a lot of people to blame for crony capitalism. It just essentially boils down to greed. But the one last thing in closing, and we may have to pick it up again in another episode, but Bitcoin is free speech. How do you've heard Michael Saylor talk about that, and you want to explain that in the, like you're explaining it to a
Hey,
fifth
let me
grader?
let me do it, and I can do it pretty quick. The power of free speech comes from your ability to tell somebody no. When somebody's giving you something, when you're on the government dole in a again in a central bank finance system, if they're giving you the money you need to feed your family, and then the government tells you, or somebody tells you, or your boss tells you, hey, you need to take this medication in order to continue to work here, or you need to do X, Y, and Z in order for your kids to continue to go to school here, you are then at the behest of whatever they want. You don't have freedom of speech, because if you get out of line, they can remove the things that they are quote unquote gifting to you. So when you have a monetary system that nobody can take from you without you voluntarily exchanging that value, you all of a sudden have the power to say whatever the heck you want. That's a really, really powerful tool. Money enables free speech. Why is the Second Amendment there? It's there to ensure the First Amendment. We don't have an amendment. We don't have a constitutional amendment for why free and fair money should exist. But that is I think is equally valuable to the Second Amendment for protecting free speech. Fair and balanced money can protect your free speech as well. The ability for somebody not to take something back for you from you is very, very powerful.
Thank you, Brian, and transform the money, transform the world. We will see you next episode.